shine your light upon this word and into our hearts, that we may be enlightened with fresh understanding. Amen. You may be seated. Thank you very much. I'm not going to ask that you remain standing for the sermon, even though that would have been proper many years ago. Aren't you grateful that you live in the day that you do? And I might add, it would have also been proper that the service could have lasted as much as 2 hours. So be thankful for little blessings of life. It is a joy to be back in Young County. It's always good to return home. As I shared with you last time, I had the privilege of being with you. I grew up in Graham, Texas, finished high school there in '75. But I frequented this area of Young County because some very dear friends of ours had a dairy over here in the Loving area. It was the Hawkins family. I also took piano lessons for a number of years from Helen Hawkins. And we would also go dove hunting out there and had a lot of fun. So it's always good to be back, and I am so grateful to your pastor, Reverend Harold Braddock Jr., for his invitation again and his confidence in allowing me to come back and to share from his pulpit. And I continue to follow Harold and his family with great interest in my prayers. I have all the respect in the world for Harold. Fun individual, and you are blessed to have him as your pastor. Also in my prayer, I got a little excited. Sometimes the words don't flow. Whenever you are 60 years old, they don't flow quite like they used to when you were 30. And I know swords were beaten into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks, so don't go home today to that poor soul didn't even know that scripture. So I wanted to clarify that with you. We're going to look at the book of 2 Samuel today. We're going to go to the Old Testament. So many times we do not look at the Old Testament. There's wonderful stories that come from there. And I'm one of those firm believers that unless you understand the Old Testament, you cannot fully understand the New. Jesus spoke so often. He made reference to the Old Testament. And we recognize, we know that God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And it is the same God at work in the Old Testament as we see revealed in Jesus Christ. So we're going to look at a section here, but I'm going to venture to say this is not one that you are commonly familiar with. We're going to look at the 9th chapter, verses 1 through 13. And I want you to go and talk with all of your friends from other denominations, because I know they talk to us many times. We Methodists kind of get a little lost sometimes in biblical content. But I want you to ask your friends from other denominations, do you remember the story of Mephibosheth? Ask them that one, and I guarantee you it will get quiet. All right? Let's look at the 9th chapter, will you? David asked, is there still anyone left in the house of Saul to whom I may show kindness for Jonathan's sake? Now there was a servant of the house of Saul, his name was Ziba, and he was son unto David. The king said to him, are you Ziba? And he said, at your service. The king said, is there anyone remaining of the house of Saul to whom I may show the kindness of God? Ziba said to the king, there remains a son of Jonathan. He is crippled in his feet. The king said to him, where is he? Ziba said to the king, he is in the house of Machir, son of Ammiel at Lodabar. Then King David sent and brought him from the house of Machir, son of Ammiel at Lodabar. Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, son of Saul, came to David and fell on his face and did obeisance. David said, Mephibosheth. He answered, I am your servant. David said to him, do not be afraid, for I will show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I will restore to you all the land of your grandfather Saul, and you yourself shall eat at my table always. He did obeisance and said, what is your servant that you should look upon a dead dog such as I? Then the king summoned Saul's servant Ziba and said to him, all that belonged to Saul and to all the house I have given to your master's grandson. You and your sons and your servants shall till the land for him and shall bring in the produce, so that your master's grandson may have food to eat. But your master's grandson, Mephibosheth, shall always eat at my table. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then Ziba said to the king, according to all that my lord the king commands his servant, so your servant will do. Mephibosheth ate at David's table like one of the king's sons. Mephibosheth had a young son whose name was Micah, and all who lived in Ziba's house became Mephibosheth's servants. Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem, for he always ate at the king's table. Now he was lame in both feet. May God add his blessing to the reading and your hearing of his holy word. We'll make sure this works. If it doesn't, I want you to just kind of listen carefully, because I sometimes have problems standing in the pulpit. Even though 60 years old, I still feel like there's some energy and passion left in proclaiming the Word of God. Let me tell you a story about a man by the name of Dr. Fred Craddock. Dr. Craddock was an individual who was probably one of the most well-known pastors in Christendom. He just died back in 2015. An amazing man. I had the privilege of hearing him on 2 occasions. But he and his wife, Nettie, were going out to Tennessee, Gatlinburg area. They wanted to just get away for a while. Fred Craddock said, I had had a number of preaching workshops. I was just worn out, and Nettie and I just kind of wanted to get away. So he said, we went out to Gatlinburg, got our things moved into the cabin where we were going to stay for a few days, and decided to go into town to a little mom and pop restaurant that we'd been told about. He said, we sat down there, and he said, no longer than we had sat down, all of a sudden, he said, this old gray-haired man entered into the restaurant. And Fred said, I could see him begin to make his way to all the customers that were in there eating. Fred said, I apologize, I asked for forgiveness later, but I thought to myself, oh Lord, please don't send him over here. But sure enough, he said, the little gray-haired man began to make his way toward Fred Craddock and his wife's table. He said, I don't believe I know you folks. Y'all aren't from around here, are you? Fred said, I very courteously just kind of shook my head, didn't expand in any way, thinking that he might go on his way somewhere else, but he said he didn't. He said, you mind if I come over and just visit with you? Well, Fred said he broke me down there. I said, oh yes, come ahead. He said, the fellow sat there, said, what do you do? Fred Craddock said, I thought this would be my way to get rid of him. He said, I'm a professor of homiletics. He said, I just nearly knew that man would not know the meaning of homiletics. But he said, the gray-headed man said, homiletics, oh, you teach preachers how to preach. He said, I could tell then that the old gentleman was beginning to settle in for a good while at our table. Then Fred Craddock said he began to share his personal story. He said, let me tell you a preacher's story. But in the same, he said, let me tell you something about myself. He said, you know, I grew up here in Tennessee. He said, I didn't know my father. He said, my mom never did allow me to take my father's name because she didn't want me to hold a grudge against him. For you see, he said, I'm an illegitimate child. And he said, back in those days when I grew up, that was not the thing to be. He said, there were other kids that made fun of me. He said, I even heard the adults talking about me in various places. He said, but I continued in my life, doing the best I could. He said, you know, my mother quit going to church after I was born because of the comments that some of the people, even in the church, would make. He said, I should never forget, because he said, I was 14 years old. And so friends of ours invited me to go to church. Since Mom quit going, he said they wanted me to meet the new pastor that was in town. He said, I went to the service once, and he said, I kind of slipped in and slipped out. He said, the second time I went, he said, I kind of connected to this pastor. He said, this pastor kind of shared a sense of kindness that I had not seen. But he said, Mr. Craddock, I'll never forget, because he said that time as I was trying to get out of the sanctuary as quick as I could after service so I wouldn't have to be confronted by anyone, he said that pastor reached over and grabbed me by the shoulder. And he said, whose boy are you? Who's your daddy? He said, I turned around, and that preacher looked me right in the eye, and he said, oh, I see the resemblance. You're God's son. You're a child of God. I see the resemblance. He said, that pastor told me, go out and claim your inheritance.
He said, you know, Dr. Craddock, something happened to me that day because he said, I had felt like such a worthless human being. And as a teenager, I didn't have much hope for future until the kindness of that pastor somehow just turned me around that day. He called me a child of God. And he said, I shall never forget it, because that pastor made a world of difference in my life. The old gray-headed man, Fred Craddock, said he stood up, walked out, spoke to a few other people, and out he went. The waitress came back up to bring the tab for the meal for Dr. Craddock and his wife. And he said, the white-haired gentleman that just walked in. He said, who is that? She said, oh, you don't know who that is? She said, you must not be from around this area. She said, that's Ben Hooper. Ben Hooper served 2 terms as governor of the great state of Tennessee. You never know when an act of kindness will just turn somebody around. You never know when you just stop and listen to someone's story that it may make a difference, that it may somehow restore their dignity and remind them that they too, just like us, is a child of God. And that we have a future, that we have a God who cares about us, and a God that doesn't continue to hold us down but lifts us up. Let's look at our text today. It comes out of 2 Samuel. Mephibosheth was an interesting individual. We don't hear this story often, but we remember here that David rose to the throne as king of Israel. And whenever that happens, we know that in that particular period of time, that they would exterminate anyone from the previous dynasty in the family that once held the throne. Why did they do it? Because they were afraid that another family member might try to rise up and overcome and take the throne. But David was king at that time. And if you recall the story, there was Saul, who had been king. He and David did not get along at all. But David was extremely close to Saul's son, Jonathan. Well, Saul and Jonathan found themselves in a battle of Gilboa, and they both lost their lives. And Mephibosheth was the grandson of Saul and the son of Jonathan. And so we see here that David kind of lost track after the death of these individuals, and we are told that Mephibosheth here was probably about 25 years old. And David just inquired one day. He said, what about, is there anybody else from the family? And all of a sudden, this Mephibosheth was brought into the throne room of David. And you see what kind of attitude, you see what kind of self-image Mephibosheth had. Look down there what he says, what is your servant that you should look upon a dead dog such as I? And probably part of the thing was he knew that it was his grandfather that David had not gotten along with. But in the same, we are told that he is lame, had difficulty walking. And in that particular period of time, unfortunately, due to misinterpretation of who God was, if somebody had a struggle in life, if somebody had a difficulty, they felt like many times, well, it must have been that God was unhappy with them. And that's not who God was or is. But they brought Mephibosheth in to David. Mephibosheth thought there's no way. And let me back up a second though and tell you how Mephibosheth became lame. During that war at Gilboa, in which Saul and Jonathan were killed, all of the people that were associated with that particular dynasty and of that king, the nurse went in and grabbed Mephibosheth when he was 5 years old because she felt like he would also be killed. And she accidentally dropped him. Look back a few chapters in 2 Samuel 5. And he went lame. Broke his legs, evidently, we don't know, but more than likely broke a leg or two. They didn't have medicine as we do today, and he was lame, so he was a nobody. And by the time, as I said, he was probably around 25, I'm sure he had been scorned by many, was ostracized and told he was a nobody. And here is David, and look at what David says here. From this point forward, you will always be welcome at my table. David was one who showed kindness to Mephibosheth, and he had probably encountered only the opposite in life. But David was one who was unique, and we know that he was the greatest king to rule over Israel. And maybe it was because of situations like this. So we see two individuals, Ben Hooper, former governor of Tennessee, Mephibosheth earlier, two individuals who were probably considered nobodies. They wouldn't have anything that they could contribute. And because of the kindness of individuals that are people just like you and me, that are inspired by God, they rose up and became somebodies. We need to try a little kindness these days, brothers and sisters. I am so tired of seeing news stories of people being cruel and hurtful to other people. What's happening to us? And I've even seen and heard of people who are religious people treating other people as if they were dogs. There's no excuse for this. Let's look at a secular interpretation or definition of kindness is showing somebody that you really care. You're going out of your way to do something special. Simple. We look at the sacred understanding of kindness, and we know that kindness began and begins with God. The word in the Old Testament was hesed, which means loving kindness. So if you're having problems today understanding the definition of kindness, maybe it goes back to that old hymn in the Cokesbury hymn that we used to sing out. You remember it was called Love, Mercy, and Grace. That's what kindness is. That's how we treat people. We don't treat people as second-class citizens. We don't treat people as if they are nobodies, because they too, as I said in my prayer, every one of us have been breathed into them the breath of life by God. We live in an interesting day today. And I remember growing up, even in Graham, and then before that in Roby, Texas, down in West Texas, we gathered with the neighbors every evening. And we just sat around and talked. I mean, I didn't because I was little, but I remember watching this happen with my parents and other neighbors here. They sat around and just visited with each other. People of different race, people of different financial means, people of different educational levels in life, people of different social levels in the community. We all sat down and we were one. And we extended that amazing gift of kindness to one another. We remember how our Lord Jesus Christ was one who showed us kindness. As he said, if you know me, you know the Father. Our Lord Jesus Christ showed us time and time again what it means to be kind to somebody else. He translated the faith into a way that reached out in love and understanding and forgiveness to others. You remember that story that comes out of John's Gospel? There was a woman who was caught in the act of adultery. Now, if you don't look at this text, you miss some of the things that are there. But you know, it was at a time in which they were trying to catch Jesus. So they would come and they would pose questions to him, but he was much more intelligent than that. He saw through it. And here was the story. Remember the woman caught in adultery? There was a gentleman who came, I use that term loosely, that came to him with this woman. They said, we've caught her in the very act. What do we do? Well, you know, Jesus realized what they were trying to do. They were trying to catch him here. Because if he said, go ahead and stone them, then that would have put him in conflict with Pilate, because as you remember, the Jewish people could not implement the death penalty. They might ask for it, but the Roman officials had to implement it. So if he said, yeah, go ahead and stone them, then he would be in trouble with Pilate. But on the other hand, If he said, don't stone the lady, then he would be in conflict with the people. But it's interesting because these men brought this woman to her. We have caught her in the act. And if you remember the law of the Old Testament, they misinterpreted because they said right there in the text, they said if you catch someone, then the woman is to be stoned. Well, both the man and the woman could be stoned. Where was the man? I propose to you today, brothers and sisters, that one of the individuals in that group of men was the man who had had the relationship, and so it was so convenient, he must have said, let's pull this off, we'll go to Jesus, we'll have her stoned, we'll get him in trouble one way or the other. But he could see through that. Remember what he said? If you're without sin, go ahead. Go ahead and throw the stone. If you've not done anything wrong, go ahead. But you see what Jesus was saying to them? If you presented yourself to be without sin, that was blasphemy. And then you're in trouble with God. So what was the result? Stones and walked away. And then Jesus said to the woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? She said, no one. He said, neither do I condemn you. Go your way, and from now on do not sin again. It is the kindness of our Lord Jesus Christ that presents you and me the model by which we are to live life. We have not been called to be judges in people's faith lives. We have been called to extend forgiveness, love, new beginnings, but it is never our role to be judge. And that's the thing that interests me today, because so many times we're putting ourselves in the role of judge, and it's a very dangerous position to put ourselves. We're called to reach out in love. We don't understand it. I love the book. It came out a number of years ago that had to do with fly fishing. A river runs through it was the movie that was made with Robert Redford. You remember there was a classical line in there because the old pastor who fly fished with his sons lost one of his sons. Tragedy. And the father got up in the pulpit in the church. I'll never forget. He said, you can love completely without complete understanding. I like that. There's been times in life in which God has called me, I believe. I didn't fully understand the situation. The person probably did something that was not right. But God had called me to love that individual. And let God take care of the judging part. We are to love and to help them and to extend to them the hand of kindness. I love Frederick Buechner. He's up in his 90s now, great contemporary theologian. He tells wonderful stories about the faith. He can take everyday situations and translate them in a way like no one else. He tells in one of his books, as he talks about this idea of love and kindness, he said there's a particular gentleman, and he said you see him one day as he's driving, you catch a good glimpse of him because you pass him as he's coming through a school zone, so he has slowed down. He said the old man was obviously unkempt. He had a cigar hanging out of his mouth. He hadn't practiced any hygiene. His old truck was just beat up. He had a bumper sticker on the back of it that said, Jesus loves you. He said he was just one of those guys that just seems like everybody else just kind of shows. He goes on in his illustration and he says that there's the woman that you see at the movie theater. You don't know her. She wears thick glasses, and every time that you see her, she's there by herself. And he says she kind of eats popcorn in a funny way. She doesn't seem to have some social graces. She laughs out at places in the movie that don't seem to be appropriate. And he said, you see her, but you really don't know who she is, and you kind of avoid her. Maybe the reason that we have avoided these people, he said, is because we've lost our sense of empathy in life. Empathy is the precursor to kindness. Came across a statistic the other day and said how few people are empathetic anymore. Instead, we jump to the other side and we have something to do with people who may be in these situations that we don't understand. If they have voted like we have, if they are the same people that live on the same street, if they are those people that have the same financial ability, if they have the same education, he said, they're like us, we tend to have time for them. But he said, if they're not, we tend to walk another way. And then he finished his story. He said, remember the man in the pickup I wrote about earlier in our story today? He said he didn't put that bumper sticker on his pickup. His wife put it there. And he said he doesn't know if he believes in God anymore, because how would God exist whenever God allows certain things to happen like it's happened to him? His son has AIDS and he's dying. But you see, Peter said, no one took the time to explain a healthy perspective of who God is. That God does not inflict pain and suffering. Peter says, that man in that old pickup, he said, that's your father, if you're a Christian. If you're a Christian, that's your brother. He said, if it's your brother, then it's also your son. He said, go out and extend to them the love of Christ. He said, the woman in the theater, her sickness is loneliness. Her disease is cancer. He said the woman goes to the movie to get her mind off her disease and the treatments that she's going through. Peter says she wakes up in the middle of the night and just would long to have someone with whom to visit and to share her pain and her feelings, but there's no one. He said that woman is your mother. He said if you're a Christian, that woman is your sister. That woman is your daughter. The Church of Jesus Christ has to step up in the culture in which we live today and show the world again what the meaning of kindness is, what loving kindness is, what the love of God is, and the mercy and the grace. And then we will turn things around. We're not going to turn things around as long as we're just lifting up powerful arms, race, and those things like that. It's going to be changed by our love. I'm not making that up. This is the message of Jesus Christ. He rode into Jerusalem one day on the back of a donkey. And imagine those that had believed in him thought, what in the world are we doing? We're going against Rome. Look at their arms. Look at their armies. Look at all that. And Jesus said, this is the way of God. It's the way of love. This past summer, there's going to be an image put up on the screen. This is Jax. Jax had been in our family. He would have been for 12 years this coming November. But this summer, my wife was out with our daughter, and we noticed he hadn't quite had the energy he used to have. Our son-in-law is a veterinarian in Fort Worth, and he had told us, he said, you know, you need to be aware your dog has a heart problem. And because she is Cavalier Spaniel and Poodle Cross, he said she has 2 strikes against her because those 2 breeds are really bad to have heart problems. Anyway, one night I could tell the little dog was really struggling. Just so happened that our son-in-law, the vet, was out of state at a workshop, so I took her to a local vet, We have a new dog, and it is a female. I'm just now getting into the habit of calling her. But I took him to the vet, and I could tell it just wasn't the same dog. The vet came in, so we're going to do some routine tests. She brought in the x-ray. She said, Mr. Norman, you need to be aware. She's a very, very sick dog. She put up the x-ray, and if you've ever seen the anatomy of a dog, you've got the heart there in the chest, but her heart was so large it was pushing up against the trachea that runs along the top of their back. So the poor little fellow was having problems breathing. she would have some coughing, we noticed in the last few days, and it was because of the heart was up against her throat. So she said, what do you want to do? Well, if you've ever been in that situation, you know exactly what needs to be done, but that's not what you want to do. I said, well, give me a night. I said, my wife and I will discuss it and we'll decide. But what made that decision so hard was this little dog had this amazing ability to know who needed to be loved. Whenever any of us in the family was sick, she was laying on top of me. Our daughter, even, who was not living with us at the time, came to recuperate with us because she had major knee surgery and was kind of incapacitated. Well, that dog laid on her the whole time she was there. He just had that amazing ability to know when somebody was hurt. Well, the next day, there at the veterinary clinic, I'm talking with my wife. We made the decision that she would best be served by having her put down. And if you've ever been through that, I'd just rather somebody take me out and beat me. But she didn't quite make 12 years. But she showed us, even as a dog, how to extend kindness. Because she could always pick up on who needed to be loved. You know, there's a saying that goes around. They say the world's going to the dogs. Well, if it's this kind of dog, leave me alone. I don't want to be part of it. Gracious and loving God, as I shared in our prayer earlier, we all were in the need of redemption. And thankfully, we have a God that revealed God's self to us in through the love of Jesus the Christ, who time and time again showed kindness. And new beginnings evolved out of those interactions with human beings. You are that same God today. You've shown us time and time again that we are to be those individuals who extend ourselves to others. May we show love to those around us, even though we may not know them, even though they may be different from us. May we stop and pause and remember that every person that we come in touch with, that is, if we believe Genesis 1, is a child of yours. So may we show them love, may we show them kindness, and may we show them mercy, because you have done the same, and you do the same for us each and every day. These things we pray in the name of your risen and present